Hello everyone and welcome back to this course on implementing high availability solutions with Windows Server 2019. We are in section 5 of the course, and in this video we are going to be creating Hyper-V VMs in a hyper-converged S2D cluster. So let's get on to the lab and get started. So now that we have our available storage, the first thing we need to do is basically make use of our new exposed storage and make Hyper-V ready to run those VMs. So the first thing I need to do doesn't really have anything to do with S2D. In fact, it has to do with Hyper-V itself. I am going to quickly just copy and paste the commandlet here. I've already ran this. Basically, you would run this from the management workstation, invoke command computer name on all the 4 nodes, and the script block would be to create a new virtual switch, call it production, and we need this virtual switch because all the VMs are going to use this virtual switch to move around the cluster nodes. We are going to specify that this virtual switch should be bound to our Ethernet 0 interface and allow the management OS. So uh, as I said, I've already ran this, and in fact, just to validate this, and you should do the same, let me just quickly open up Hyper-V Manager here and connect to one of the nodes. Let's do it on S2D1. Okay, and on S2D1 here, if we go to Virtual Switch Manager, you can see that indeed we have a production switch that is on an external network, and it allows management operating system to share this network adapter. What I would recommend you to do is to check this on all of your nodes to be sure that the switch is there. Okay, now let's go ahead and start creating our virtual machine. And we won't do that in Hyper-V here. In fact, we will do the creation of the VM from failover cluster manager as an addition of a new role. So in order to do that, let's go to roles. And if we right click on roles, we go to virtual machines and new virtual machine. I am going to set this on S2D1, and this would bring up the new virtual machine creation wizard. Now, you may be familiar with the wizard from Hyper-V Manager, but there are some additional configuration in our case that we need to do for this VM to be highly available. So let's give it a name of VM1, let's say. And I do not want to store this virtual machine here locally on S2D1. Rather, I want to set its virtual hard disk files on the high available cluster storage that we've set, and that is C:\/ cluster storage. And if I remember correctly, volume 1 should be volume 1. So in fact, let me just cancel out of this and go back here to just to show you, because by exposing this new disk, this new virtual disk, this new storage here, basically this is available for all the nodes in the cluster to share. And in fact, if you can see, this is the actual path. It's C:\cluster storage / S2D LAN 1, and this, by typing in this path, this is accessible from any of the nodes in the cluster. So let's go on with the creation of our VM, new virtual machine, S2D1. Okay, again, give it the name VM1, and again, we store it on our cluster storage. So C:\cluster storage. Okay, it didn't autocomplete, and / S2D1 LAN. So this is where I want to store my virtual machine. Now, clicking on next, I want to do this generation to virtual machine. I want to use dynamic memory for this virtual machine, and I want to, very important, connect it to the production virtual switch. Now, clicking on next, we are presented here with the hard disk options. It will basically create a new VHDX and store it in the location we specified. I'm going to give this 60 gigabytes, and let's click on next. Now, if you want, you can install an operating system later. In our case, I want to install an operating system from a bootable image, which in fact I have one stored in a share, which I've presented on, let me see if I remember correctly, file1 backslash ISO. And if I browse to this location, here we go. I have an ISO of Windows Server 2019. Again, this would be a best practice to present a share on one of the servers to quickly access the ISO, because if you're working with remote shares on with remote ISOs on remote servers, that might be kind of tricky. You might need to do some additional configurations in regards to Kerberos constraint delegation and so on. So now I'm going to click on next and click on finish. And what we're doing, we are now actually creating this highly available machine on the piece of storage available to all the nodes in the cluster. So all the nodes can access the contents of this VM's virtual hard disk simultaneously, right? And this is the great part with the S2D cluster. So I'm going to leave this to finish. We have an error here. So user does not have, yes, as I was saying, I need to specify some permissions on this share. And in fact, let me just quickly do it right now, because I think that's the problem. If not, we will attach and install an operating system later. So if we go to, let's see, file1 here, and the ISO and security of this one. Okay, if we go to security, and as you can see here, we kind of don't have permissions to access this. I'll just add everyone with full access permissions on this file, and I'm going to go okay. In fact, let me see, everyone full access, okay. And I'm going to give it on the parent object as well, security advanced, and everyone has full access to this one as well. Now let's go back and check to see if it will create it properly now, and if not, we will detach the VHD. We will add an operating system later, and that would be about it. Again, we are still encountering some issues. So VM1 user account does not have permissions that require to open the attachment. I will detach the VHD and troubleshoot this later and get back to you with a proper answer for this. So let me just create the VM, and we will install the operating system later on. Now it should be creating the VM properly. Here we go. Let me just close this partial window. And our VM is created now in our highly available piece of storage. Now, let me just turn on this VM, start it. And once it's running, I want to show you that we can just connect to it. If we had the DVD mounted, it would present us with the Windows Server installation setup. And that completes the process for this video. So I will see you in the next video where we'll be discussing about implementing a disaggregated S2D cluster. I hope this has been informative for you and thank you for watching.